All right, and this is what everyone's been talking about this morning. We've got first reveals of the next set after Beyond the Brave, which is the Immortal Phoenix set, which very obviously, as everyone has already predicted and as it's been announced, is going to be themed around Marik and the Winged Dragon of Ra, as you can obviously tell from the cover of the set. Now, we are going to take a look at the first wave of these cards from Immortal Phoenix, where Marik is on the cover of the pack alongside some Ra retrain. And we are getting, as expected, some retrains of Marik's most iconic Yu-Gi-Oh cards. We've got Hellpomer here. Very awesome looking card. The Sun God's Poet Hellpomer. 2000 attack, 1400 defense, level 5 Dark Fiend. You can only use the first, second, and third effect once per turn each. You can discard one other card, special summon this card from your hand. Simple enough. If this card is special summoned, you can add a Sun God card from your deck to your hand, except another copy of itself. If your opponent's life points are at least 2000 higher than yours, you can discard a random card from their hand. Okay, I guess we'll see how easy it is to make that happen early on in the game. Because this is a random hand rip, which is a powerful bonus effect. But it depends on how easily this deck manipulates life points. During the end phase, if the Immortal Sun God was sent to your graveyard this turn, you can add this card from your graveyard to your hand. Okay, so we've got a little bit of a main phase 3 theme going on here, where the card adds back to the hand. I mean, this is just a good starter, right? This card reminds me of essentially Apprentice, Illusion Magician, Nightmare Apprentice kind of cards, were very, very easy extender / starter, discard one, special, and then search, which are all high quality cards in their own respective archetypes, right? Like if you can play a card like that, then you would play a card like that in most decks, so that is good. No locks on anything here so far, so all right. The Sun God's Destructor Makiura, level 4 Dark Warrior. That is also a really cool looking card. You can only use the first and second effect once per turn each. If this card is normal or special summoned or sent from hand or field to the graveyard, you can set a Sun God spell trap from your hand or deck. If it's a quick play spell or trap, it can be activated this turn. During the end phase, if the Immortal Sun God was sent to your grave this turn, you can add this card from your graveyard to your hand. Okay, so also the same follow-up effect. This card is phenomenal, depending on its targets, of course, but it's phenomenal because it works as a normal or special summon, but it also works as a great discard for this thing, right? Like this is just two cards that work perfectly in tandem. You can just discard the Makiura for the Hellpomer, and then you get the effect as well. Most importantly, and this is really, really important, it sets the spell traps from hand or deck, which means that if you draw the trap or spell, whatever the deck has, you can still use it, which is one of the biggest issues that I have with Grifo and Black Chaos, is that they can't set Mind Shuffle from the hand. It's super frustrating. So as a big fan of the Rolat deck, this is just painful for me, because you can't even say that they learned from it, because it's something they've done before it as well. Like they've done this countless times already. They just forgot or intentionally didn't do it for the Ritual of Light and Darkness deck, which is really frustrating. But yeah. It just feels arbitrary, right? Like, yeah, Maiden of White, right? Maiden of White in Blue Eyes, you can set True Light from your hand, because they were like, well, if you draw the True Light, what are you going to do? Well, we'll let it set from hand, or place from hand, so that it's not that big of a problem. And for the Yugi cards, we forgore. Yeah, anyways. The Sun God's Terror Machine Gilgarth, level 4 Dark Fiend, of course. You can only use the first, second, and third effect once per turn each. If you control a Sun God card, you can special summon this card from your hand. You contribute this card, then target one other card in either grave, send the Sun God card from your deck to the grave, and if you do, place the targeted card on the bottom of the deck. Okay. That is interesting, because it doesn't work as a starter, which is already kind of bad. Because if you just normal summon this going first, you have no target yet. So you would have to have, I mean, anything makes it live. If you activate Upstart Goblin and have an Upstart in the grave, then you can use it, right? But other than that, it's not going to be live as just a true one card starter, but it's probably okay. Does have graveyard interruption for the opponent's graveyard as well, which is somewhat interesting. Not a quick effect though, which makes it significantly worse at that, and only one card as well, so nothing close to other graveyard interactions that we have. It also doesn't banish, it puts the card on the bottom, so no way to get rid of a resource in that sense that it's going to be gone forever, but it's okay. It also depends a little bit on, you know, how good is sending a Sun God card from your deck to the grave, because we've already seen that the Makiura lets you set a card if it's sent from the grave. Oh no. Oh, it doesn't. It's only from hand or field. So if we send them, so far we haven't seen anything that we can send and get an advantage from. I mean, we can send something that then goes back to the hand in the end phase, right? Is like what we can do. But is that really worth playing yet? I would argue not yet. I would argue not yet. Okay, the Sun God's torture device, Visor Des Shock. Okay, we're combining Visor Shock and Visor Des into one card, all right. Level 4 Dark Fiend, you can only use the first and third effect once per turn. If a monster is sent to your opponent's grave and you control a Sun God card, even during the damage step, you can special this card from your hand, and if you do, return one other card on the field to the hand or extra deck, and if you do, inflict 800 damage to your opponent. Cannot be destroyed by battle during the end phase. If the Immortal Sun God was sent to your grave this turn, you can add this card from your graveyard to your hand. If a monster is sent to your opponent's grave and you control the Sun God, it's kind of like a hand trap. It's kind of like a hand trap, but it's also kind of bad. It's kind of bad, isn't it? It's kind of like Kelbeck, the Ishizu Kelbeck, but you need to control a Sun God, so it doesn't work when you go second, which is weird. It can help you play into a board because it's a non-target bounce, which is pretty okay. It's better than Kelbeck's hand effect. I would argue it's worse because you need to control a monster. Like, yeah, if you control a Sun God card, then it's better than Kelbeck because it's non-target. But if it's not, if you don't have a card, it's completely dead. So I don't know if I would call it just better than Kelbeck. I think it's worse than Kelbeck overall. The fact that it works in the damage step is actually very interesting. This is a very interesting part that I want to emphasize because it means that it works when you run over a monster, right? It works when you attack over a monster, and it also means that it's much harder to interact with because when you activate an effect like this in the damage step, a lot of cards just cannot be chained to it. So it's a non-target bounce in the damage step that your opponent can barely respond to, unless they have a card that negates activation. But for the most part, that's a very powerful part about it. But at the same time, it requires you to go second and be able to run over a monster. So it's not going to come into effect that often. I will say this is probably the card that the end phase effect is the best of. Because, of course, like, when you play on turn 1 and you use all of these other cards, right? And then you add them back to your hand in the end phase, that is quote-unquote just follow-up. It is just something for next turn because none of these cards do anything on the opponent's turn when you have them in your hand. This card does. So if you send this to the graveyard, for example, this is the best card we've seen so far for the Terror Machine to send from the deck to the graveyard on turn 1. Like, this could just be a one-of that you send for the Gilgarth, just so you add it back to your hand as an interruption in the end phase. But all the rest is just follow-up. Right? Witchcrafter coded, yeah, kind of like that, right? It's kind of like that, where all of these cards, you get them back in your end phase, you have all the follow-up in the world, but you have 0 interruptions from it. This at least gives you an interruption. Okay, and here is the big one. It's a fusion monster, and it is a wonderful overframe, the Winged Dragon of Ra overframe. Here you go. Here you go. The Sun God of Darkness, the Winged Dragon of Ra. It does look pretty good. It does look pretty good. I like that one. It's a level 10 Divine Beast. These are not divine beasts, so I was, yeah, no. This was something that people speculated, was that they could make like a divine beast archetype around one of these, and then you could play all the dominus cards in it. But luckily they didn't do that. This one is of course divine, but the rest is not, so you still can't play all of the dominus cards. The Winged Dragon of Ra, +3 Sun God monsters. Okay, that is interesting. The reason why that's interesting is because it specifically says the Winged Dragon of Ra. And this was a big question I had, because with a lot of these new archetypes that they're doing right now, the big question is always, are they going to make a completely new deck? Or are they going to force you to play the old cards? Because sometimes they do this, sometimes they do that. Like for example, with the new Sacred Beasts, even though we previously had Sacred Beast cards in the game, they are all not part of the new Sacred Beast archetype, right? They just said, let's revamp this entire thing, let's start from scratch, and let's make a completely new archetype out of it. That are just, they look like the old cards, but they are completely new cards. You don't have to play any of the old cards anymore. And I thought that's what they were doing here so far, right? I thought that's what they were doing with these, but looks like you still have to play the Winged Dragon of Ra, which, of course, the Winged Dragon of Ra in itself is probably going to be a brick, but okay. Unaffected by other cards effects. Okay. Just like that, like that. Once per turn during the main phase, quick effect, you can discard any number of Sun God cards, choose that many monsters, choose that many of your opponent's occupied main monster zones, make your opponent send the monsters in those zones to the graveyard. Okay. All right, number one, this lets you make use of all of these cards in your hand during your opponent's turn, which is interesting. It's removal, but also the little phrase here, make your opponent do it, means that you can out towers with this. You can out Liger Dancers with this. This is the kind of thing where Liger Dancer is not gonna look happy when this guy walks into the room. This is the towers that beats all of the towers, the ultimate towers, dude. Okay. When an attack is declared involving this card, you can pay life points so that you have only one left. This card gains attack and defense equal to the amount of life points paid and the total attack of all Sun God monsters currently in your grave. Oh, wait, hold up. 800, 1800, 1600, 2000. Oh, that's a big towers. That is a big towers. So... I'm trying to think whether I like this or not as a win condition for a deck. I do think it's kind of fitting for the Winged Dragon of Ra Divine Beast deck to have this kind of win condition. At the same time, the fact that it's fitting doesn't really mean it's good for the game, because look at Toons. Because it's kind of fitting that the Toon cards look at your opponent's hand. That doesn't make it any more healthy. It doesn't mean that like looking at your opponent's hand and having two Omni Negates is good design just because it's on like flavor. What I'm trying to see right now, or what I'm trying to think about, is whether this card is better or worse than Liger Dancer. Because it's bigger than Liger Dancer. It's because one of the way you out a Liger Dancer is by attacking over it, right? You attack over the Liger Dancer, which is of course easier said than done, but that's how you do it, right? This is basically unoutable by battle. If you read the next cards, you will understand what they did. Oh yeah, we'll get more context, but it's like the way you would beat this card, right? The way you would beat this card is by having a way to either inflict burn damage, or by having a way to attack directly, or give your opponent a monster that you can then attack over or something like that, right? Underworld Goddess, Gallant Thief. I mean, yeah, of course, the classic tower outs all apply. The classic tower outs all apply. That always works, of course. Yeah. Okay. Ooh. Is that Lava Golem? Is that Lava Golem retrain? Okay. Lava Golem, the Sun God's Steel Cage, level 8 Fire Fiend Fusion Effect monster. Sun God monster you control and 2 face-up monsters on the field. Cannot be used as fusion material, must be fusion summoned or special summoned from the extra deck to your opponent's main monster zone by sending the above cards from either field to the graveyard. Oh god, okay. Do you know what's funny? If you summon it with the second method, you can only special once for the rest of this turn. Okay, that's a harsh restriction, to be fair. You can only special it once per turn this way, no matter which method. Once per turn during your standby phase, take 1000 damage. What I'm trying to say is this is a good tool for a deck like this to have. At the same time, the fact that this card exists simultaneously makes this deck better and worse at the same time. Because now there is, every deck has a way to out this card now by just reviving one of your opponent's monsters. It does need to be a Sun God you control. You cannot use the opponent's monster as a Sun God. That does not work. But if you have any card that revives your opponent's monsters, you can now out it. A Dark Charmer, because they're all darks. Dark outs this guy if your opponent plays this. Alright? Fallen Anti-Virtuous when you have an Ecclesia in the graveyard. Striker Shark Cannon. Anything where you can revive one of your opponent's monsters, you can technically now out this guy, you know, by playing this in your extra deck. Which is, of course, it's the age-old question of like Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon or something like that. If you end on only Ra, you're fine. It's not true. You can use two of your own monsters and just this guy. Like your opponent, like Dark. If Dark steals one of your monsters, you have the materials. You can use your Dark, your Sun God monster, and your opponent's Ra. Dark alone does it already. Of course, you have to respect your opponent's ability to clear your Dark. They can out your Dark with this, right? There's more layers to it. But if you can ever force your opponent to use this on anything, and then you can do a Dark after, you could theoretically, you know, do this. True, but if you do, you can only summon once for the rest of the turn. Yes, there's a restriction. There's a restriction. I'm just saying, like, it becomes, because this card exists, and if people play it, it becomes a little bit harder to win the game off of the back of just this card being unoutable, right? So, okay. That aside, let's evaluate this card the way it's quote-unquote intended to be used is in the deck itself. In the deck itself, you basically now can turn every single monster you have into a Lava Golem out of thin air. You just manifest it. I think that's an interesting mechanic. I think that's an interesting mechanic, and I think it is tied to a very harsh restriction that honestly probably makes it fair, I think. It says main monster zones. Yeah. It says main monster zones, but you can out the monster that they summon with Dark. So you then don't have a Sun God monster anymore. So it doesn't beat the Dark itself, but it gets rid of the monster that the Dark summons before you can contact view, so it works. Yeah. Anyways, this card is good. This card is good for this deck. At the same time, I think it's also balanced. I don't think this is too strong. I think the lock attach, also the fact that this is very telegraphed, right? Like everyone is going to know that this is a thing. So if your opponent has a strong board, all they have to do, because this is not a quick effect or anything like that. This is not a Lava Golem that you have in hand that just happens out of nowhere. This is going to be telegraphed because they will have to establish a Sun God monster first. You have to summon the Sun God monster, and then your opponent just, like, you know, removes it in some way, shape, or form. And then you're not going to be able to do it, right? So I don't actually think this card is that crazy. It sounded more fancy when I read it for the first time, but the more I think about it, the more I feel like this is just okay. Not that crazy. All right, here is the card, right? The Immortal Sun God. This is the card that they all care about, right? This is the card that if it goes to your grave, all of them go back to your hand. This is the card. Quick play spell. You can only use this card's first and second effect once per turn each. Special summon 1, the Winged Dragon of Ra monster from your grave or banishment, ignoring its summoning conditions. Then, if it's the Winged Dragon of Ra itself, send it to the grave, and if you do, you can special aid the Winged Dragon of Ra monster from your extra deck. Send any monster summoned by this effect to the grave during the end phase. Wait, but it's unaffected, isn't it? Unaffected by others. So this would, if you summon this guy, it still goes to grave. Wait, it still goes to grave? Okay. Why is that? Like, I believe you guys because there's basically like 50 people saying it right now, but I actually don't know. It is a condition. Okay. All right. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I read this card as well is because these special summons are happening in sequence, right? It's like you summon the Winged Dragon of Ra, then you send it to the grave, and then summon another one. This is 2 separate special summons. So if you summon the Lava Golem to break the board, you cannot even do the entire thing, right? You cannot do both. Okay. During your main phase, if this card is in your grave, you can discard 1 Sun God card, add this card to your... Okay, so you can add it back from the graveyard. That's another way to get it. You can search it with the Gilgarth, basically. Just send it from deck to grave and then discard one of the other ones, add it back to the hand, and in the end phase, all the other... So, but what's the point here? Isn't this card kind of bad? And if you do is simultaneous, yes, but then is not. You summon once, you summon one time, then there's a then in the text, and after that is another special summon. So that is not simultaneous. My issue with it is that you have to summon the Winged Dragon of Ra or a Winged Dragon of Ra monster from grave or banishment. So this card is just not even a good draw. You do have to keep reading. Yeah, I mean, I know there's more cards, but like this card is just not, it doesn't feel great to me. The Sun God leading down into darkness. Continuous spell. Activate this card by sending a Winged Dragon of Ra from hand, deck, or face-up field to the grave. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name once per turn. Okay, so this is how you get one of them in rotation for this, I think. This still doesn't make this a better draw because you have to have other cards to even make it live, but it does get you there. You can only use the first and second effect once per turn. During your main phase, if this card was activated this turn, you can add a Sun God monster from your deck to your hand. Okay, that's pretty good. If a monster is destroyed by battle, inflict damage to its controller equal to its original attack. Then, if you have the Winged Dragon of Ra in your grave, you gain 1,000 life points. This is simultaneous. This feels like more of a downside. I'm gonna be honest with you. This feels like this just presents your opponent with a way to beat you. Because if you make a big friggin' Sun God of Darkness, you have to go down to 1 life point. 1. Which now means if your opponent ever runs over one of your other monsters, you lose. So you have to just sit there with 1 of these and attack them to death. Otherwise, you die. Okay. Sun God Domination. Why are there harpies on this card? Are the harpies being tributed for sphere mode right now? Normal trap card. You can only use the first and second effect once per turn. If a Winged Dragon of Ra monster is on the field, apply these effects in sequence. Special a monster from each grave to your field. If the Winged Dragon of Ra is on the field, take control of all monsters your opponent controls. You can banish this card from your grave. Tribute a Winged Dragon of Ra monster. Gain life points equal to the attack it had on the field. Okay. So we can get... If our opponent is about to attack for game, we can tribute our boss monster, I guess, and then gain the life points back. Sure. Just for completion's sake, I'm gonna read the last card, because then you guys can't say, well, read the next card, it's going to explain everything. Yeah. We have the Sun God's Protector, Egyptian God Slime, Continuous Trap. You can only activate one card with this card's name per turn. Special summon this card in defense position as an effect monster, 3k, 3k. It's still a trap with these effects. If it's special summoned, you can add a Sun God card from your deck to your hand. Then if it's a monster and this is your opponent's turn, you can special it. Cannot be destroyed by card effects. Okay. Terrible card to draw, but this is a good card to set. There's a couple of good cards to set with the... what's it called? With the Makura. Now... can someone please explain to me how I am supposed to summon the Sun God of Darkness, the Winged Dragon of Ra, in a way that it'll actually stay on the field? Because the only card from these new cards, the only card that summons it in a way that it's, you know, it is sent to the grave in the end phase. So you'd have to like use OG polymerization or something to summon it. You keep resummoning it. So the way I interpret this is like, you're trying to summon this guy, but he's not supposed to be at towers that stays there forever, and that's your win condition, right? The point of this card, it feels like you're supposed to summon it, and it's only supposed to stay there for a turn. But it gets really big and you're trying to attack for game with it. And if that doesn't work, then your deck kind of falls apart. Or, I mean, you do have follow-up. You can do it again on the next turn. You can do it again on the turn after. And you can try to gain your life points back by using the graveyard effect of this, right? It's like, okay, if something goes wrong, you can't attack for game with your big 10k monster. You just gain your life points back and try again later. Right, is the idea. And then also you can, in theory, also this is a quick play spell card, right? So you can summon it on your opponent's turn. You can summon it on your opponent's turn to survive, right? Because your opponent just cannot kill you if this is on the field, right? They just can't. They might not even be able to attack it, because if they attack this with something that is too small, they just die. Ra's gimmick is that the phoenix is the phoenix that you keep reborning. Yeah, which is I'm working my way to get there, right? I'm working my way to understand what's going on, and I think I like it more now. I like it more now because when I read this for the first time, I was like, well, this is just a very, very hard to out towers, and they kind of like are trying to turn this deck into like a Lunalight 2.0. where you just summon a guy that's impossible for your opponent to out, and then they just attack, and you just die to it, right? I know there's older cards. I'm familiar with some of them, actually. I'm familiar with like the True Sun God and stuff, or like I'm familiar with the rough idea of the deck because I've played it for an episode with the Card Market people where we did domain format. I played a raw deck for that, and like. This is not supposed to be a completely new archetype. This is supposed to go with some of these older cards, like the True Sun God and the Immortal Phoenix and the Monster Reborn gimmick thing. Maybe you even still play that. But, yeah, it just kind of like streamlines it into... Because the thing is, this card is kind of trying to do the same thing as the deck was always trying to do. But now, instead of making it with like... Because it was always super vulnerable if you tried to do it with just Winged Dragon of Ra, right? Like, because Winged Dragon of Ra does the same thing, right? Where you pay life points and it just gets big. But Winged Dragon of Ra, of course, wasn't unaffected by everything. So it was really hard to have that as your win con. Because, like, you pay all those life points with Winged Dragon of Ra, and then your opponent stops it. Because obviously they're going to stop it. And so they tried to fix that by making a card that like cannot be stopped as easily because it's unaffected. Ra has Immortal Phoenix mode where it's unaffected and has 4k. There are ways around it, but they just, I mean, if it was good, then we wouldn't be needing support, right? Like we're talking like these ways that raw decks had were not appropriate to the times. They were not good. Otherwise, the deck would have been interesting, but it wasn't. Okay. I do like it more now. I do like it more now that I have the context of all the other cards. Because now it starts making some sense, right? It's like you just try to summon the Phoenix Fusion, try to attack for game with it. If it doesn't work, then you try again next turn. This is why there's so much follow-up here in the graveyard. And if you ever... I don't even know if this deck wants to go first, because, I mean, you can't really do much going first, right? You can't really... I feel like if this deck goes first, the plan is... set this card, and survive the turn with it, right? Is kind of like what you're supposed to do. Because, I mean, no one is killing you if you summon this. Unless they specifically have an out in it, like a goddess or something. But if you go first with this, you just cannot really die, right? You can use Metamorphosis. Right, and this is the dangerous part. This is the dangerous part about this entire thing. Because if someone finds a way to summon this card in a way that is not, or in a way that's permanent, this card becomes kind of crazy, right? This card becomes kind of crazy if it's permanently on the board. Like if someone finds a way to summon it with like a regular poly or something, where I would have liked if they put the clause on it, this card can only be summoned by the Immortal Sun God or something like that. I think that's what would have rounded it out for me, because then you would have forced people to use it in this way. Then you would have stopped people from just cheating it out or making it in other ways. But of course, if you make this with Poly, you still need 3 Sun God monsters. You do need 3 Sun God monsters if you're making it with Poly, and the Winged Dragon of Ra, which is going to be very hard. That is much harder than Liger Dancer, right? But Metamorphosis is a way to do it, yes. Fusion Deployment against Winged Dragon of Ra. Yeah, I mean, that's not great. Like, Fusion Deployment can summon a lot of cards. Guys, it's not that there's a lot of cards that you can summon with Fusion Deployment, and guess what? No one is doing any of that, because it's only good if you summon a card that does something. Ra can't be special summoned. All right, then that was even a lie. But I mean, it wouldn't have mattered even if it was true. Like Fusion Deployment can summon Dark Magician, for example. But it doesn't matter that it can do that, because who cares? Congratulations, you've summoned Dark Magician. You are now going to proceed to losing the game. Can you use Heavy Poly for the 3 Sun God monsters? I forget. Can you use Heavy Poly with question mark? I forget. You can? Okay. Because then... I mean, you could, yeah, right? Because you do need, you can't do it for the Winged Dragon of Ra, but you can use 3 Sun God monsters. You would have to play, you just play 3 copies of this, because this is a Sun God. So you can use 2 copies of it to summon the 3rd copy, and then one of them would have to be the Lava Golem, which is also a Sun God. You would take 3,000 damage for that one. Oh, wait, no, this can't be used as fusion material. Never mind, you can't use this one. So you would have to use 2 of this and 1 Sun God and the Ra from your hand. So even with Heavy Poly, it's not that good. It's still a 3-card combo. They knew? Probably. I mean, I think the reason why this can't be used as fusion material is because they don't want you to make another one with the first Lava Golem. Because you give this one to your opponent, they can then use it to make their own. You know, it goes back and forth, right? Like you give your opponent a Steel Cage Lava Golem, they could then theoretically Steel Cage Lava Golem you back. So that's why I think they don't allow that. They don't allow you to do that. I don't know. I was confused because I expected these to be a little bit more broken, because when I woke up this morning, I saw Triff going crazy about these cards this morning. I saw Triff going completely insane about these on Twitter. And I think, and I actually don't blame him for it, but I feel like I feel like the reason why he thinks it's so good is because he also thought that this wouldn't apply to it, which is what I thought as well. So I don't blame him for it. This is something that, you know, I also wasn't sure that this was going to actually send it. But I do feel like if it does have that drawback of going to the graveyard during the end phase, I feel like that's fine. He did reply to that. Okay. Well, then what is the reason why it's supposed to be so broken? Because like, if the argument is that this card hits the board and immediately attacks you for game, that is just worse tenpai, isn't it? If that's the way you approach it, that would just be worse tenpai because it's so much easier to play around. You summon your stuff in defense and it won't happen, right? Or like anything that lets you dodge in damage step also wins. Like for example, a forbidden droplet. You just cannot you just can't do it. He sends them. No, it won't. You will not have. If you summon 4 monsters in defense position against this deck, it'll not summon the Winged Dragon of Ra fusion monster and have 4 monsters in hand to discard. The discard, you only get those cards back in the end phase to discard. You're not gonna have 4 cards to discard to just send all of your opponent's defense position monsters away. It's not gonna work like that. Like this deck is so much worse at OTKing than so many other decks out there. They can Lava Golem in attack. Yeah, they can Lava Golem in attack, which is true, but then you only get 1 more special summon, and if your opponent has 1 way to do anything about this, then it's not going to work out. Because, I mean, this thing gains a lot of attack points, but it doesn't gain infinite. Like, the Lava Golem has 3k. You pay, even if you didn't take any damage, you gain 7,999 attack. You do need 3,001 of attack in the graveyard to even make it happen, which you can make happen if you go through all of these. But at that point, you start losing to graveyard interaction, right? Like you lose to the dragon that devours the dogma by just shuffling your stuff into the deck, and so your fusion monster doesn't get big enough to attack for game, you know. You also can't lava and then phoenix because of how the spell is worded. Yeah, you would have to summon the phoenix first and then lava golem, which is very odd sequencing, but it does work. I'm looking forward to summoning this with Fallen and the Virtuous from their grave. You can't do that because it's not properly fusion summoned. It's a special summon from the extra deck, so this cannot be revived. Doesn't work. Yeah, loses to Grifo as well. If they do Grifo for no damage, you lost, right? In this scenario. So it's so much easier to beat than like Liger Dancer even. Like Liger Dancer is a better win condition going second than this, I feel. Doesn't it lose to any burn damage? It does lose to burn damage, but obviously most decks don't have that. It also loses to Droplet, because the way that Droplet works is, even if you have an attack position monster, if they attack your attack position monster, if you Droplet it away in the damage step, they don't get a replay. Just in case people didn't know that, if you have a way to out your own monster in the damage step, there's no replay. So if you attack a monster and they Droplet it to the graveyard in the damage step, you just can't attack anymore. And you can still try to Droplet this. Yeah, it's unaffected, but you can try to Droplet it. It's not easy to burn for a game. You need to attack it to trigger the 1 life point. Yeah, exactly. Like if you burn them before they use the effect, all it does is it reduces the attack points that they can reach with it, which could still be a win con, right? Like sometimes maybe if you inflict like 2,000 burn damage to it, they simply cannot gain enough attack to OTK you, right? Depending on how big your monsters are. Because it's just like, okay, well, now it grows to 7,000 because that's all you could afford to pay, which is just not enough to attack for game, and so you don't win, right? They do get the attack of the Sun God monsters too, but in most cases, that's going to be like 4 to 5k added on top. So depending on how much you can pay and how much the monster is, you still have to make up the difference, because you're not attacking directly usually, right? You're going to be attacking over a monster, and if that monster is big, then you're going to have a lot of life points to spare to have enough attack points to actually go for a game. If there is any sort of manipulation of life points going on, if you can only pay 6,000, it might not be enough. Very good against people that don't know the deck. Falls off hard if they do. Like, I'm looking at it from this perspective, right? If this is the game plan going second, it just feels like, even though this card is unaffected, it feels like it's so much more interactable than a Tenpai deck going second, for example, right? Like, it feels so much more. There's so many more things you can do about it than you could against Tenpai, for example. You're forgetting the continuous spell effect. I'm not forgetting it, but I'm just not sure if it's reliably going to stay on the board. The continuous spell is very easy for people to interact with, because this just dies to any form of removal. Like, you really cannot just rely on doing enough damage with this card by attacking over something, because this is a continuous spell. It's very easy to pop or any other removal. Considering there are no locks, I wonder what decks it synergizes with. I don't know. There are no locks on any of this, but I honestly, I don't really see a reason to splash this as another deck, because I don't know. It doesn't feel like it adds that much quality to another deck. Like, these cards just don't have the craziest amount of quality, right? It's just all. It kind of feels like Millennium, but less splashable, if that makes sense. Because the Millennium cards, they would at least produce a bunch of bodies on the field, right? Which was why they were used in other decks. You could use them because it was just, well, pay 4,000 life points, get 3 bodies easily, right? These cards don't really do that, because this guy has to tribute itself. This guy doesn't produce a body on your turn. You've got 2 monsters here. This one is discard 1 to special it and then add a card, which is fine, but not crazy. And this guy also just gets you 1 spell if it's summoned. There's no, like, real way to spam a bunch of bodies without normal summoning or anything like that, right? Have you read the True Sun Go? I'm familiar with the old Ra stuff. Yeah, I am familiar with it to an extent. And I think you are supposed to play some of the old cards in this, because you also want the Winged Dragon of Ra itself, but yeah. What if we play this in trap decks for the Lava Golem? Yeah, the Lava Golem is cool, but why not just play Lava Golem? Is my question, right? Because these cards are just worse than just drawing a Lava Golem. I don't have to draw this one. Well, you don't have to draw the Lava Golem, but you have to draw one of your monsters to make the Lava Golem. Like, yes, in theory, I agree with you. Having the Lava Golem in your extra deck would be a huge boost in consistency. But you have to draw one of these. And these are going to be very easy for your opponent to remove. Like, you just normal summon the Makura, and your opponent knows, oh shit, there's a Sun God monster. I better use my Fallen and the Virtuous on it, and that's it. You didn't get the thing. And if you can spare your normal summon for something like this, why not just play the Greatest Gallant Thief? Like, how would this ever be better than the World Greatest Gallant Thief is my thing, right? I don't know. I think these cards are fine. I like the idea behind it, actually. And I don't really think it's an issue. I at least, or let me rephrase it. I think this deck is not an issue as long as people play it the way that they intended it to be played, which is that the fusion monster is summoned with the quick play spell. As long as they summon the fusion monster with this card, I think this deck is healthy. If people find a way to find some sort of hybrid variation that, like, searches polymerization and searches all the other pieces, and then it just summons this going first, or like cheats it out via metamorphosis or some other way, that is going to be a problem. Which is just something that, like, this is the age-old problem of Yu-Gi-Oh these days. Like, we've just been having this problem for a couple of years now, that a lot of archetypes, if they're just played the way that they're supposed to be played, they're completely fine. But people find other ways to play them, and then it becomes a problem. So we'll just have to wait and see if that happens with the raw cards. But the archetype itself, I think, is fine. I think it's fine. Metamorphosis doesn't even summon Exterio. This isn't going to be a problem. Yeah, it just adds another card to another level threshold for Metamorphosis, right? Because maybe a deck that what level is Exterio level 10 actually? Maybe it doesn't even change anything because Exterio is like the same level. Oh yeah, I think Exterio is level 10. Yeah, Exterio is level 10. I'm gonna be honest with you, I think most of the time Exterio is just a better target for Metamorphosis then. Like, maybe going second this is better, but it's just, yeah. I think with Metamorphosis, I think we just all collectively close our eyes and hope it never gets used for the things that it could be used for, and hope that it stays a meme. Why is no one playing Exterio in Power Patron with Metamorphosis? Well, the reason is that Power Patrons have like 15 cards in the deck already that say, if I resolve, you FTK your opponent. And so why would you play a card that says, if you can play the game, you can FTK your opponent even harder? So if it, like, Power Patron, this is you guys are XDDing right now, but that's genuinely the reason. The reason is because if Power Patron plays the game, you are FTKing your opponent in like 20 different flavors already. You don't need to add a Metamorphosis into the mix that makes your board even stronger. Your board already wins, like, against everything. So, yeah.